Welcome everybody to our success series. I kind of faked you out last week that was our last week, but I forgot we had one more. So we are doing foreclosures and bank owned tonight, which is one of my favorite. Well, they're kind of three things mixed into one, which I'll explain to you in a little bit, but this whole grouping of different transactions, my very favorite. I love, love, love it for so many reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and get you started on who we are and what we do. This is just an overview of the 6-week series that we do on all of these topics, the foreclosures, the auctions, and the bank owned. So you can make good money. If you read the tips and tricks for the week, you'll know that you can actually make a whole fortune just on any one of these techniques. So I'm really excited to bring that to you tonight. Different ways you can find us. For those of you who've been following us for a little while, it started as just a website, and now Tyrell has us on YouTube, and we're on Instagram, and there are a bunch more videos for you guys. So you can just keep piecing it together, learning a little bit at a time. If you want to learn hardcore all at once, like get in there, learn how to do a deal, we do offer the full mentoring for that. So if you want a package, we can put together different techniques along with some group accountability, some one-on-one accountability, whatever makes sense for you. There are many ways for us to teach you how to do real estate. And if you've been following for a while, you know that there are a lot of different choices of what you can do with real estate investing. So you can find us on our website still. You can find us on our Facebook page at Real Estate Investing, Accelerated Real Estate Investing, sorry. And then you can text me. That phone number on there is my cell phone, 801-809-2764. Best to text than to leave a voicemail. And then the YouTube channel on Instagram, that's just for your fun. If you have a few minutes, you can pop on there and watch one video at a time. You can go on there and watch a whole long webinar and get a ton of information at once. So it's up to you guys. What's your schedule? What are your needs? Do you want to just start learning a little bit as you go and follow us? You can actually subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram so that you get automatic things also. On the website, there is a place where you can sign up for a weekly tips and tricks, and that will just automatically come to you every week if you guys want just a little bit of something every single week until you're ready to go big time and get some deals done. At the end, I'll tell you all the different types of things that we cover. Obviously, bank owned and foreclosures is just one category, so there is a lot more that we cover. If you're interested in rentals or other things, we'll talk about that at the end. So here we go, assembling your team. Why is this so important? You cannot do real estate alone. There's no way to do it alone. You have to have at least another party. If you're a buyer, you need a seller. If you're a seller, you need a buyer. You may need tenants if you own rentals, but you always need people that can do things for you. So even if you have IRA money you're investing, you might need an IRA custodian. If you are getting a loan on a property, you're going to need at least one good loan officer. There are people that can help you find good deals. Right here, real estate agents, bird doggers, and wholesalers. You can get involved in your community, find some local real estate investing clubs, look for the We Buy Houses or I Buy Foreclosures. You know, you look for the little bandit signs on the side of the road. Those are investors. You can hook in with them, see what they do, see if they have any good deals for you to purchase. So you definitely need different ways to find properties. And then you've got the different sources of funding, property managers if you're going to have rentals, handymen or contractors, depending on if you're doing fix and flips, or again, rentals, you'll need some handymen for that. A good insurance agent. It's really important to protect your properties, so consider that as a core team member as you're building your investing business. And then a good real estate attorney, and remember, all attorneys are not the same. You've got estate attorneys and divorce attorneys, family custody, all that kind of other stuff. That's not what you need in your business. You need a real estate attorney, somebody that understands contracts. And if you're like me and you love creative real estate, you need an outside of the box attorney that understands different contracts, not just the regular state approved one that all the realtors use, but you're going to need them to understand maybe lease options or wraparound mortgages or other kinds of creative financing contracts as well. So they should be also a core team member when you're building your business. And then some of these other ones, you may have subcontractors. It's all kind of the same category though, whether you have contractors, like general contractors or subcontractors, all the way down to just handymen that do different things, maybe landscapers or any kind of day laborers. So there's a whole category there, who you need and what is smartest for each of your deals. That's something that we ought to talk about when you get to that point. Now, today's takeaway. We are looking to share whatever we can with you guys. An idea, maybe you take away just a simple little tool, something that will help you in your business, something maybe that just makes you a little bit smarter today. I always say, if I learned something that day, it was a good day. So hopefully you will learn at least one thing, if not 20 by the time we get done tonight. So let's start with foreclosures. We've got the benefits and risks of investing in properties. Yes, there are some risks. Some techniques have higher risks, some lower, but it's important to understand what you're getting into. There are different types of foreclosure properties, and we also want to help you understand where and how to find these the easiest, and then how do you analyze the different foreclosure deals and negotiations, contracts, and making offers. So we cover those big wide picture over the 6-week series that we do. Tonight we're just going to do little touch points, so pay attention for whatever of these different categories you want to learn more information in. Maybe you're already really good at finding, but you don't know how to put together a deal, or you don't know how to analyze it to make sure it's profitable. So just think about what you need and pay attention for those things. So in week 1 we cover the benefits and risks. Now, there are a lot of benefits. Number 1, I mentioned you can make a fortune just in foreclosure properties. There are an abundance of properties. Obviously, when you go through things like we did across the country, 2009, it was pretty bottomed out by then. A lot of people in foreclosure. We've tightened up across the country, so there are not as many distressed properties as there have been some other years, but they are still out there. Absolutely. We have short sales in our market, and the Salt Lake market is pretty strong and very, in general, very conservative and very steady, but we still have short sales. We have people that lose jobs, getting divorced, have medical issues, and get behind on payments. There are always people in distress, sadly, and this is one thing that you can use in your business. You never want to take advantage of the people, and in fact, you as a kind, considerate, win-win investor can go in there and actually help them out a lot of times, as opposed to other people that just try to snake that deal from them. So keep in mind that you can make money while helping other people at the same time. So you can be what we call a problem solver, and the bigger the problems you solve, the more money you make. They do offer great pricing, but some of the risks, there are definitely title issues. Sometimes you have a lot of other investors that are in there fighting for these, so they can be very, very competitive. Unless you find the seller directly, which is something that we talk about as far as direct marketing to sellers, and then maybe you're not fighting with 10 other investors in the same weekend to get a property. And there can be very slow responses from sellers. It can be very tedious trying to get a hold of them. That's one of the differences of buying direct from sellers that are in distress, as opposed to those that are maybe listed on the MLS. If they're already listed properties, they're going to be much more competitive in general, but they're also much easier. You can just submit an offer and call it good. So there's a lot of red tape that can be involved in the bank purchasing process, in the short sale process, and that's just part of what you have to be prepared for. If you want to work these deals, that's what's ahead of you. There are pre-foreclosures, auction properties, and REO properties. So here's the distinction. Pre-foreclosure is before it goes to auction, and it's during the foreclosure process from the banks. There's the auction itself, which is very short. That piece of the timeline is this big. It's going to open, and usually within 5 to 20 minutes, the auction is going to be over. So there's a little prep time getting ready for that. Depending on what kind of auction it is, you might have earnest money you need to put down or a deposit. But the auction process itself is tiny, whereas opposed to foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, that can go on from anywhere from about 2 months to a couple of years, with 6 months to a year being about an average time. So that's a long part of the foreclosure process. So then you go to auctions, very short, overdone. If it doesn't sell at auction, now it's going to go back to the lender and it becomes an REO property. That stands for real estate owned. So that is the same as bank owned. So bank owned properties, they're pretty easy to purchase from if you can get a hold of the right department. So that can be a little bit of the tricky part. Until that bank owned property hits the MLS, sometimes they're very, very hard to find, unless you've already gotten in good with the seller and you've been able to track that property through the bank process. So another good reason to create a good relationship with that owner and to be able to have access to that property, what's happening with it as it goes through the system. Because if you're just from the inside out and you're not on the inside in, it's going to be hard to find that until it hits the MLS. So these bank-owned properties, you're going to find them at banks, credit unions, government-owned. You can buy a lot of these in bulk, but here's the downside of that, and it goes back to the risk-reward. The risk of buying in bulk is that usually the bank's going to throw a few of their not so good ones in with the better ones, and that's how they unload their less desirable properties. So when you're buying in bulk, you have to be aware that not everything's going to be a sweet deal, and maybe you just take a bit of a hit on 1 or 2 of them out of the 5 or 100 that you buy in one package. So there are some risks with that, but knowing what you're doing, I'd really recommend if you're going to go into bank-owned properties, you get very good mentoring help with that. I don't recommend you go and try to do that on your own. By the way, I know that some of you have joined us live on Facebook, which is great. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. But some of you also are on the webinar. So if you're on the webinar itself and you want to chat over any questions, you can put them into the questions box or in the chat box, and then I can see those periodically and answer your questions for you. So pre-foreclosures, how do you find the deals? There are ads that you can place of your own. Very seldom do any sellers advertise. You have to go and find them of this type, but there are some. If they don't usually tell you that they're pre-foreclosure, they don't just offer up that they're behind on payments, but they might say, hey, let's just try to sell the house. But usually they're in so much chaos financially, emotionally, they don't really have the forethought too often to get in there and advertise their property. So a lot of times that is your ad looking for the seller. Something like this in the picture. That is a great big bandit sign. That's what we call those. The bandit signs are the kind you've probably seen driving around that say, I buy houses. So if you've got your advertising out there, it's easier for these distressed sellers to find you. There is the MLS, the multiple listing system that all the realtors use. There are notice of default lists. That's the NOD list. Sometimes if you go to real estate investing clubs and you hear the investors talking about the NOD list, that's what that is. It's when the bank has put a notice of default against the property that is public, and at that point that public information says, hey, this property is behind on payments. That's how you know that it is a distressed property. So that, or what they call the lis pendens. And so that just depends on the kind of state that you live in. If it's going to be now I'm going to have a brain cramp. Notice the default. Oh goodness. There are mortgage states. Yeah, I'm going to skip that one because I can't remember. If you're really curious about that, you can ask your real estate attorney or just email me or text me and I'll give you the names later because they're cramping in my brain. But basically there are 2 different kinds. Oh, sorry. There are judicial and non-judicial states. So we only worry about NODs in Utah. So sorry about that. You might live in a state where you have the lis pendens instead of the notice of default. So that's all I'm saying. It's the same category of property, but it's just called different things because it's handled slightly differently in one state to the other. And then you've got foreclosure auctions, and those are going to be public notice as well. Anything that's coming up in maybe what you've heard as a sheriff's sale. So you can see there's a lot of terminology that goes into this kind of technique. So, you know, the different names in different states, the different processes, they all have a general timeline, and that's what I'm teaching you tonight. Is generally you've got the pre-foreclosure, the auction, and then the post-foreclosure auction, which is the bank-owned. But what they're called, oftentimes you'll hear 2 or 3 different terms, but it means basically the same thing, or sometimes exactly the same thing, but it's that same piece of the pie that you're looking for. And then REO auctions, again, that's just real estate owned auctions. So if you are in a place where banks do that commonly, that's a pretty easy way to go. Now, here's one of these takeaways for the day. Remember that if you go buy a property that is bank owned, it's very hard to get inside and look at them ahead of time usually. It's not a really smart idea to pick these properties up without seeing the inside. And I'll tell you why. Sometimes they look beautiful. If you can see behind this little sign here, this house might look great from the outside. It's a beautiful brick structure, but it may have a basement full of mold, or it might have a big foundation problem. It could be a meth house where people have cooked methamphetamines in it. We had a huge thing in our town years and years ago where over on the east side, people started renting out these fancy houses, and that's where they were cooking meth. Not in the rundown houses, not the ones that were falling over that looked like they might be meth houses. They were beautiful, beautiful homes in very fancy, expensive neighborhoods. So you cannot judge a book by its cover. You've got to get in there, and you've got to use your senses. Your sense of smell can tell you a lot of things. Your eyeballs for sure. Even what you hear. Do the floors creak? Does anything sound like it's not functioning that well? And that is a smart way, even on bank-owned properties, to buy properties. Any questions so far? You guys feel free to pop those over to me at any time. I'm going to keep talking, but if any questions come in, then I will answer them. So today's takeaway as far as finding foreclosure properties, if you've never peeked around online, I'll tell you it's this easy. You can just go into a Google search or whatever search engine you want to use, and you type in, for example, I'm in Salt Lake Valley, I'd put in foreclosure properties, Salt Lake City, or Salt Lake, Utah. And then it's going to pop me something up. If I want to go buy in Indiana, I'm just going to put in either bank-owned properties, Indianapolis, or whatever major city I'm looking in, and that is close to where I want to invest. Sometimes you can do the exact city, but remember that a lot of these sales are going to be county by county. So whatever your county seat is, or wherever the capital is, that's a good idea to check for the government offices and where these sales are going to be held, because the auctions are generally held at the same place all the time, sometimes once a week, sometimes bi-weekly, sometimes once a month. So if you're preparing to go buy these auction properties or any bank-owned properties, look close, but not necessarily exactly in the city that you want to buy them in. And you can add the city on there as well. You might get some fun ads that pop up, but when you're looking specifically for auctions, you know, your sheriff sales, your foreclosure sales, definitely look in the bigger areas, and your county offices should be able to direct you, so you can take the number, whatever it gives you in your Google search or your online search, call them and ask them questions. When and where do these auctions happen? Here are some questions for you. Here's another takeaway. What do you need to do in order to prepare for these auctions? Is there a time period you have to register ahead, or can you just show up with cash and buy? There are a lot of little nuances that you'll want to get familiar with before you just show up at an auction, unless you're just going the first time to get familiar with it and to see what it's actually like, which I would recommend. If you're planning to buy any of these kinds of properties, then head out to auction once or twice. Just go and see what it's all about. And then when you go back often enough, you'll start to see the same players show up. And then you get to know who are the competitors for you in that area, who are the other investors that tend to buy at these places. So if you're just peeking online, RealtyTrack, HUD.gov, auction.com. If you're looking in Utah, there's utahforeclosures.com. All of these are good sites, relatively. You know, it's hard to say this is an excellent site and this one is not, and they tend to change over the years. 1 month you might have a lot of good things on one website and not on another, so you want to check back regularly and get familiar with the inventory. So the process, the inventory, all of that is research that you need to continually do if you want to really get good at this. This is not something that you just pop onto one time and then throw your money down and buy something. So that is a really good takeaway for that one. Now on negotiation and offers, most of it's going to be the same. Some of it's going to be a little bit different. You want to make sure that you understand your state laws, and trust me that they are mostly the same, but that one little thing that is different can make or break your deal. So that's why you need to do a lot of research. What is the foreclosure process in your state? Have you met any other investors that have invested in that area? Who can you connect with that can walk you through some of that? What about your real estate attorney? Have you sat down and had a conversation with them? What do they know about it? Usually in any town, there's at least one, but sometimes a few of these foreclosure attorneys, and that's all they do. So I'll give you a little scenario. When I first started working with short sales, and that's the part before it goes to auction, when the seller's just behind on payments, I would physically go down to the county courthouse because that's where they had all the notices of default, and they would literally just have pieces of paper pinned up on a bulletin board. Now they still do that, but most of the things are online these days in most of your cities or counties, and it's much easier to sort information that way. But back to the story, I went down and I would look at the papers one by one by one and look at the address, see if it was something I was interested in. And then on part of the paper, there was the attorney's office that was in charge of the foreclosure that the bank was hiring to fulfill the foreclosure process. And I started seeing the same names all the time. Well, then I found out those were the law firms that most of the banks were using in the area. Now, it's a good idea. Again, if you're planning to be a professional, you need to do your research. If you want to be safe and avoid a lot of risks, you need to do your research. Part of that research should be going and talking to someone at the law office to find out what is their process, what do they recommend for you to do, what are pitfalls that you can avoid. Yes, it can be hard to get in, but there are sometimes these law offices that will give you a free consultation. So if you even have to just come back, set up an appointment, they'll give you a 15 to 30-minute free consultation usually, and come with your list of questions so that you can use that time really wisely. So make sure that you find out if the short sales are already listed, if the seller's already tried to work something out with the bank. If you're the first one coming into the scene, you'll want to get an authorization from the seller that you can send into the bank. Usually a verbal authorization is only good for that very phone call, or maybe for a day, 24-hour period. But if you put in a permanent written authorization with the seller's signature and date on there, then that can stay on there the whole time. So even if it is a year and a half down the road and it's still in foreclosure, you can contact that bank and you can ask them questions. They'll talk to you because the seller's already authorized you to. So there are some things like that that can help you have much more and smoother access to the information on the loan, because that's what the issue is. It's not the house itself to the lender, it's the loan. The loan's behind on payments. So lots of stuff to do there. But short sales are one way that I love to be able to help the people. The shorter the time frame, the faster you need to hustle. This is where it can be a little bit tricky if you don't have cash of your own. You want to get close enough to the closing deadline that you have your loan in place, but you don't want to get pre-qualified for the loan so early that by the time this property is approved for short sale through the bank, you can't get the loan anymore and you've got to reapply. So there's a timing issue in there with short sales for sure. Now, REO properties.
Hey, Christine.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt your flow, this is really great, and I want to just take one quick second. If we can just, because we're on a little bit of a lag with Facebook, but if we can remind people how to contact you
Oh
You don't have
yeah.
to go back. You don't have to go back to that page, but if you could just throw that out one more time, because all that stuff she just mentioned
Mhm.
is going to be so pertinent and pivotal to your success, and that's the stuff they're going to help you with, especially with uh, what is it, contracts that we walk people through, scripts,
Yep.
all that stuff. So if you could just, this is really great stuff that she and Steve are so willing to help with. So let's just revisit that one more time. Phone
Hmm.
number and a few of the different ways to get a hold of us.
Absolutely. So if you guys want to learn the ins and the outs that it's taken me 20 some years to figure out, because every deal can be a little bit different and there are so many little pieces to this pie. You want to make sure that you don't miss anything. That's why when you get into techniques that are a little bit trickier, like these are or can be, you definitely want to walk through with a mentor. So if you want to do it long distance with us, we are happy to help you. There are some things that we will send you to your attorney for. We might have you ask your realtor. We're not saying we're going to tell you all of the answers because there is no way we can keep up on the laws in all 50 states, and laws do change from time to time. But what we do is mentor you through that process. Hey, make sure you ask this. It's time to check with title. Add that to your contract. Take that out. That's a little too risky. So all of these things about putting your pieces together, we would love to help you through that and hold you accountable to becoming successful. We don't want to just teach you stuff that you never use. I don't know, for those of you that are newer with us, you probably don't know exactly what we do, but we are accountability coaches. So Steve and I, for years and years now, I think we started about the same year, so 2000 and 2001. So about 17 and 16 years, we've helped people to learn how to do different kinds of real estate or build businesses or balance their lives with some life coaching. This is what we provide you. So if you're curious about how we can help you, feel free to just call us and have a conversation. That's what my cell phone is for. And Tyrell that you just heard, that was his voice. He does marketing for us. He makes sure the website stays current, and he's the one posting all of the links on YouTube so you guys can have those educational videos. And he set up our Instagram channel, so you can find us on Instagram at I Live Accelerated. You can find us on YouTube and subscribe to that channel at I Live Accelerated. And my phone number, it's best to text. You can leave a voicemail, but it's better if you just text, leave me your number, and I can call you back and we can have a conversation. What do you need? What are you looking to do? How soon are you looking to do it? And help you set up with life goals, because real estate isn't something that happens overnight. It's something that you build step by step by step. So if you want to have a portfolio by the time you retire, there's no better time to start than this year, because if you can get even one deal this year, one deal next year, in 10 years, if you do that math, and I'm talking very conservatively, one deal per year for 10 years, you will have over $1 million of real estate. In some of your areas, that would mean you're going to have closer to about $3 million of real estate. That's something very nice to have at retirement. Plus, we can help you set up for cash flow in the meantime. So depending on what your goals are, what you need us to help you with, that's what we do. We don't say come in and fit into our little square right here. We talk to you about your goals and needs and then help you to succeed. So that's what we do at Accelerated. Feel free to contact us through the website as well, or the Facebook page. So Ty has a business Facebook page for us set up at Accelerated Real Estate Investing, and you can go on there and like the page and start getting our weekly tips and tricks. You can subscribe on YouTube and watch the videos whenever you have time. That way, even if it's late at night and you have a half an hour to learn, go and watch a webinar or watch a few how-to videos, and we'll teach you along the way until the time when it is right for you, if you're not ready right now. And you can pull that trigger and decide, you know what, I'm ready to do a fix and flip, or I'm ready to learn how to do wholesaling, or gosh, my life is chaotic. I get those calls sometimes, you know, my life is feeling sideways or upside down, and I need some help getting it back on track. So no matter what your issue is, that's what we want to help you with, whether it's life, business, real estate related, or whatever you struggle with. We're all people, right? I've been through several divorces myself. We go through hard times, and we just want to make sure you get through your hard times and back on track. And if you're doing well and you're not in a hard time, good for you. Hallelujah. Now it's time to plant some seeds and get ready for a harvest down the road. So we'll start planting seeds now, whether that's any kind of home business you're doing or a traditional brick and mortar business or a real estate business. Obviously, this webinar is more focused on real estate investing, and the next couple of weeks will be as well. But then we're going to shift gears a little bit and do some life stuff, because life happens. Life happens to all of us. So that'll be kind of fun. I'm looking forward to the month of June having some to mix it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and finish on real estate. And Tyrell, thank you for that reminder. I'll throw in a little more contact information in a while here again for those who are rejoining on Facebook or maybe just joining us for the first time. So let's go to REO properties. We've got bank owned, and those are going to be listed on the MLS, the multiple listing system that is throughout the country. That's where banks will choose realtors specifically that they want to work with, and then the realtors will post those properties for sale on the MLS. And then you've got HUD, VA, and other government agencies that will sell, and those are under different website names. So if you want to find Fannie Mae foreclosures or you want to find HUD foreclosures, again, just type those in. Type whatever you're looking for into your search bar on the internet. It'll pull you up a whole long list, and you just go through and start checking every website and seeing what they require. How do you get into that process? Do you need to set up an account to access their properties that they have for sale? Or what is their process so that you can get into their system? So again, they're all a little bit different, and you've got to decide which ones you want to get hooked in with. I don't really recommend being on 50 different sites. You'll be scattered all over the place, but research as many as you like. Pick a few of your top ones that you feel like have a good website. You can kind of go with their system comfortably and try them out for a while so that you can get focused in on, again, what's up and coming. Oh, this is a new listing. This looks great, because you're already familiar with the old inventory. Or it's an easy bidding process. Sometimes the bidding process is really complicated. Sometimes it's really easy. So you've got to find where you're comfortable. And then these properties sometimes are sold at auction as well. So look for local auctions or within your driving distance. There are some sites online, if you're comfortable, and I would only recommend if you have a good team in place out of state, that you can actually buy out of state as well. I know that there are a couple of very reputable national auction companies, but again, that whole thing I talked about earlier about using your senses on these, make sure that you or someone that you know is experienced and you trust can go walk the property before you put a bid on it, and you might actually win the bid. And if you do, you do not want to have bought a can of worms, trust me. So today's takeaway, analyzing the deal. How do you gather information? There are a lot of different ways that you can, again, look online. You can also use local professionals. You can call property managers if you're looking for, let's say, what would the rents be on this house if I buy this auction property? How much could I rent it out in that neighborhood? That number of beds, baths, size of place. And so you've got the realtors and property managers that I would definitely pick the brains of. If it's local, you want to go by there and do a lot of your research, driving the neighborhoods close by, and even calling on other properties that are for sale or for rent in those neighborhoods. What are they advertising at? Then you know if you're comparing apples to apples. You, generally speaking, don't want to buy one property and do the rental comps on one side of town and expect the ones on the other side of town to be the same, because even neighborhood to neighborhood can change a lot. But here are some of those sites. We've got Rentometer, and that just gives you average rents again. Remember, it's not specific to your property. One property on the block might rent for $1,400 a month, and a few doors down might rent for $1,000, because they're very different sizes or different numbers of beds or baths, different condition of the property. One has garages, one doesn't, so you have a lot of variables, and that's why it's important to get a property manager that can verify that. But if you're just at home doing late night research, ooh, this looks kind of exciting. What about this? Here are some sites you can do your initial research on. Zilpy.com, Zillow, and even the crime rates. You can check crime rates right online without having to call the police department. But when you're getting close to buying a property, calling the police department and finding out the crime rate in the area, may change your mind on whether you buy a place or not, and especially if you want to keep it as a rental. So some additional things we offer. Remember I told you earlier, I'd tell you we do not just do real estate. We are people that have lived interesting and somewhat exciting lives. So we have all sorts of experience to share with you, and we love to share. That's the thing about our personality types. We don't like to just do real estate or own businesses. We like to share with other people how to do that as well. And one of my very personal favorite things to do is to help people take a chaotic life, and just like you would think of a messy closet, pull all the shoes out, pull all the clothes out, pull all the old things out, and then sort them and categorize them, get rid of the things you don't need anymore or that don't fit anymore, and then put the things you want to keep back in their nice little compartments, but it all makes one closet. Okay, so think about that as far as what we do with your life. Life coaching is very fulfilling for me. I love, love, love it. So I know there are some of you out there, because you Facebook me or text me sometimes and say, I'm just working all the time, or I'm not happy, or I'm struggling with this or that. And Steve and I are the two coaches at Accelerated right now. We both come from a blessed background of being trained by many, many gurus. That's what people would refer to them, although most of them don't like being called gurus, but for the sake of common language, let's say it. They're people who have become exceptional or very successful in their little walks of life. Okay, whether that's a home business or a franchise business or life coaching, real estate investing, and that's broken up into all different kinds of things. We've worked for mentors that taught us not only from our own experience, but also from their experiences mixed together. Now we have this huge pot of information we get to share with you. It might just be a guru that specialized in rentals, or one that specialized in wholesaling. We've mentored for several that have done fix and flip. So whatever you need, whatever you guys need help with, I promise you, we're either likely to be able to know it or have done it ourselves, or we've been taught by someone else. And we're not the end-all of end-all. I get that. Everybody has a person that's a good fit for them. But if it's something that we don't know personally or have not been taught and don't have confidence in that, we'll refer you to someone. For example, we're not attorneys. We are not licensed as attorneys. Have we talked to a lot of attorneys? Absolutely. Have we paid a lot of attorneys? Absolutely. But if you're looking for legal work, I'm going to refer you to an attorney. So if it's something that we don't do specifically professionally, we're going to get you to the right places. And we would be part of your team, and then you'll have the other people. If you remember at the beginning of the webinar, we talked about team building. You should have an attorney. Maybe you have a counselor if you're having a really hard divorce. You should have a divorce attorney if you have a really hard divorce. You may have an estate attorney if you just had a loved one pass away, and if it was your mom or your dad or your spouse, there's no doubt that you're going through a lot of extra things. So we're not going to try to be your estate attorney. We're not going to try to be anybody else that you need on your team, but we will be a piece of your puzzle. And so if you want to just talk about how that fits in with your life, great. Again, give us a phone call, send us an email, shoot me a text, let's have a conversation. Some of the things that we offer that are they're just tools, right? They're just tools. Group webinars like this, they can teach you a lot. We have the group webinars specific on each different real estate topic, which I'll go over in a minute. And then we have one-on-one appointments. Some people thrive in a group. Some people thrive one-on-one. We're conscious of that, and we want to make sure that you're comfortable to be able to be inspired by other people you're listening to and learn from them, or if you need the privacy of just the one-on-one and that feels safer to you. So we'll decide if you have a combination of those two things, a little bit of group and a little bit of one-on-one, or if you just need one or the other. And then we've got daily group accountability calls that we do Monday through Friday. We have the group coaching for businesses. So if you have, let's say, a network marketing business and you have a team of 10, 20, 100 people, we can actually do these group coaching on topics like time management, leadership, personality types, prospecting, marketing, anything like that related to building and growing your business. And then we also cover contracts and scripts, especially more specifically for real estate investing. And one of my favorite things of that category is role playing. So if you're uncomfortable about, I have this conversation with a seller tonight, but I'm not quite sure what to say, we can just role play. And then it makes it a little bit more comfortable for you. So on the real estate investing webinars, we cover wholesaling, rentals, fixing and flipping, seller financing, which is a very creative, all-encompassing kind of financing, not just go and get a loan. But what are the other things you can do? I bought my first 2 houses on lease options. I love lease options. And I've sold a lot of houses that way. So you can buy that way, you can sell that way. We bought our first 4-plex with a wraparound mortgage. So that's one of my really favorite categories as well. Just what can we do besides just go get a loan and throw 20 or 30% down? How can you talk to sellers to get them to seller finance you? So we go over some of that scripting and role playing in that webinar series as well. And then bank owned and foreclosures, which we covered in brief tonight, and then commercial properties, and then specifically inside of commercial properties, mobile home parks and storage units. So if you're interested in one or the other or both of those, we can throw those together as well. So those are what we have just as our ready-made real estate products, but remember that in the one-on-ones, when we're going through your goals, we can do a combination of those. This is a mix and match opportunity, and we can also teach you some other things that maybe we haven't put into a whole 6-week series, but if you ask us, what about this, we can walk you through that more on a one-on-one basis. So life coaching and personal development, I talked quite a bit about that earlier, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Just to mention in this slide, we've taught hundreds and hundreds of people at this point about managing their time better, how to create categories and make sure every part of their life has a little bit of a touch, a little attention during the week. And then managing money, getting out of debt, setting up a wealth account, and creating more wealth. Going through divorce specifically, that's something that you would coach with me on unless you really, really wanted Steve. Generally, divorce is my forte, and then grief and loss recovery, that's more Steve's forte. He lost his wife 3 years ago to cancer, and that's something particularly close to his heart. And then we've got addiction recovery that either one of us can help you walk through. And if there's anything else, I can't emphasize that enough, if there's anything that you struggle with, it's not about us having personally gone through that per se, but it's about how can we help support you in building your resources and your team of support around you, and then using them so that you can go from wherever you are to wherever you want to be. That's what we strive to do, is get in there and help you inside of your life to become more healthy, more happy, more balanced, more effective at work, more connected in your relationships, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your kids, and your relationship with yourself. That's one thing that I've noticed people in this crazy world of fast, 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 fast don't always do very well. They don't always spend a lot of time on themselves, and so that's a really important person in your life. You are the most important person in your life. So if you're not spending any time doing a lot of self-care or balancing, that's where I would always start you. But then obviously there are other components to your life that need some attention as well. And sometimes you're really high in some areas and sometimes you're really low in other areas. We just work on balancing them all no matter where you're at week by week. So that is what we do at Accelerated Real Estate Investing. So do you guys have any questions? Remember, you can find us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook business page at Accelerated Real Estate Investing. We have the Instagram at I Live Accelerated. We've got the YouTube channel also at I Live Accelerated. And then my cell phone number is 801-809-2764. Definitely text me if you have that option. If not, leave me a voicemail. I will get back to you, but I don't check voicemail all the time. It's time consuming. So in my world of, I work during these hours and I try to leave these for family and these for myself. And these for my relationship, it's really important to me to be efficient in my time, so that's why texting is the best way to catch my attention. And if I don't respond, feel free to send me another text. It just takes an instant for me to check that. So you can email Tyrell either at the website at www.iliveaccelerated.com, and he will get that message to me. Same with the Facebook page, or text me directly. Or if you just want to start following along with us, then follow on Instagram or YouTube or both. And we will be happy to have that conversation about what you need. And then last but not least, we do business development. And business is something that is pretty second nature to both Steve and myself. We've owned businesses for a lot of years. There are different ways to set different types of businesses up. And you may want to have that conversation if you're not in business for yourself yet about the best way to do it. There are some definitely more expensive ways than others to get started in business. But it is important to know how that's going to affect you tax-wise. And that's another thing. I'm not a CPA. Steve's not a CPA. We're not accountants. We've learned a lot running our own businesses, so we will share general tax information with you. But when it gets to be specific, we're going to refer you. If you need someone that we know and trust, we're going to refer you to someone that we trust to have an overlook of your taxes and see what maybe you can do to get better tax write-offs. Sorry about that. And then entities. Remember that different entities will be more or less expensive. They will generally, but not always, give you the same liability protection, and there are definite tax advantages of having some over others. So just keep that in mind when you're getting ready to set up business. We can do an initial consultation to get you set up in the right way. If you already own a business and you want to grow it, we work on scaling, duplication, holding you accountable to increase your marketing. What might some of the best marketing avenues be for your type of business? And then leadership development as well. Understanding the personality types of the people that you work with is very important. What do they naturally excel in, and where are their weaknesses? And this can be an ongoing process. Obviously, we're all unique, we're all special, but getting to know your employees or your independent contractors and putting them where they are best suited is going to help your business for sure. And sometimes people don't know what that is. They don't know how to find out what the personality types and strengths of their employees are. So those are some things that we can work through either in a group setting or one-on-one. So we hope that you guys have enjoyed our webinar tonight. Feel free to contact us any way that's comfortable to you. We hope that you have some great takeaways that you are taking with you tonight. And if you've stayed with us the whole time, thank you. Be super blessed. If you've poked in for little things here or there, thank you for joining us for what you could. Come back again next week. We're doing these every Monday night. And I leave a little disclaimer in there. We might take a night or two off depending on holidays and things that are coming up. But for the most part, if you tune in on Monday night, 5 o'clock Mountain Time, we're going to give you some nice tips that you can take with you, point you to some right tools that you can use, some really good useful tools either online or to add to your team as you're growing your business. And I will stick around for about 5 more minutes for questions if anybody has any. And if not, and you're heading off, thank you for joining us. Have a great week. Hope to see you back next week. I don't see any coming in right now, so I'm guessing we're not going to have one, but I did get a question earlier this week that I will share with you guys. So I have a client that is interested in doing bank-owned properties, and they wondered what is the best way to get started in that. And really just to summarize a couple things that I said throughout the night, but maybe you've just joined us. Bank-owned properties can be a little bit tricky just because of the networking. So honestly, one of the very easiest ways is to exhaust the bank-owned properties on your MLS. Find some realtors in town that are really good with the investor mindset. Realtors are not all created equal. Some are really good with buyers, some are really good with sellers, some are very good with investors, some are great with commercial. And then you've got combinations of maybe they're good with this but not that, and those three things. So you have to interview them. You need to find out, where do your realtors have the experience and what are they strong in? So one way to find realtors that are very good with bank-owned is to find some realtors that have done short sales or listed bank-owned properties. Now, you can look through the MLS. There's always a public side, and then there's the private realtor side. The public side, you guys can go in and research all that you want in your own time, late at night, early in the morning, and then during daytime hours, during working hours, just call some of those realtors that have some of those types of properties or have in the past and they've sold them already, and ask them, can you find me or can you send me a list of bank-owned properties? Out of 5 that you ask, maybe 2 of them will actually send them to you. But this is a great way to test them and to screen the realtors to see who will actually, number 1, do what you ask, and number 2, knows how to find them. I've literally talked to some realtors that didn't know how to go through and find the bank-owned properties or the short sale properties on the MLS. So if they don't even know how to do that, they're not the right realtor for you. So definitely get involved with your local realtors, your local real estate investing clubs, and find the realtors that are experienced in these. And that, the other little piece of that, as far as your investor club, if you don't know how to find your local real estate investing clubs, do a search as well. Go on to Google and just type in, like you would to find foreclosure properties or bank-owned, just type in real estate investing clubs and the name of your city and state. If you're in a small enough city it doesn't pull up anything, then go to your next largest city. Hopefully that's within about an hour. Sometimes I have people driving 2 or 3 hours though to get to their investment club, but if it's only once a month, that doesn't kill them, but it does take all night. That's a real commitment. But here is where a lot of times you will find tax people, attorneys, and realtors that are very well connected in the investing world. So if they're at a real estate investing club, they're more likely, I'd say 99% more likely, to have a realtor, an investor mindset. And that's what you need. You've got to find people that understand the investing world. It's not exactly the same as just going and buying a house. You have to know how to analyze things. You've got to know how to run the numbers. So if you're looking to analyze deals, you've got to find people that can figure out cash flow or rental amounts, or connect you in with their professional network that understands the difference between just going and buying a house and buying a great rental house or duplex or triplex or fourplex. So find your local real estate investing clubs, get your heinies there, and make a database of people. So not only your team, but other active investors in the area. Sure, a lot of the people that are going to the groups are not going to be very experienced. They're just going to be there like you, maybe brand new. But you've got to start interviewing and networking with people that have more experience there. And if realtors, CPAs, or tax accountants, and attorneys are at these groups, they're much, much, much more likely to be able to help you with what your goals are. So go and find them. Those are my tips for you for the week. Be super blessed. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Monday night for a checklist of how do you buy a property, start to finish. I have an 84-point checklist. If you show up next week, we're going to share that checklist with you. And that's just for showing up. You can go ahead and email in and ask for it. If I see your name online, Tyrell will send you a copy of that if you're registered for the webinar. And we're going to go through the highlights of what are the critical, important things that you need to know when you're getting ready to buy a property. Whether that's commercial, multifamily, or single-family residential, there are going to be some basics you don't want to miss. And then there will be all the variables, and that's part of what we teach, of course, in the webinars. But also next week for the webinar, for the free webinar on Monday night, we're going to cover a lot of what those things are. If you're buying a certain type of property, what do you want to make sure that you include in your checklist versus another type of property where maybe some of those things aren't critical. Might be important, but not critical. And then other times where it doesn't even matter on a certain type of property, like a wholesale deal, maybe you skip a lot of steps because The end buyer, your investor buyer, is going to be doing a lot of those steps and you aren't. So lots of information next week, start to finish. How do you buy a property? How do you get under contract all the way through to closing to where you make money? So come and join us next week. Be blessed.